The
Yeah.
Cronulla Sharks, obviously, we see the man pictured. We will get to him. He's a huge talking point for the Cronulla Sharks this year. Blake Brayley, I will start a hooker. Sorry, Blake Brayley is an interesting one at 579K, 5% ownership, and I think that's because people are looking to go options that aren't named Harry Grant, and looking to try and find 80-minute hookers, which I think, especially early on, Blake Brayley will be an 80-minute hooker. I don't see him having a bench hooker there because McInnes will probably be the 14. We all know he comes on and plays that middle role. He doesn't come on and play hooker anymore. Those days are over. So, do you see him as the option there? Do you see him?
He's very, very underrated pick, man. Very, very underrated pick. I really like him at that price too, and I just don't think he ever loses. Like, he's not someone that you have to consider injuries about, because it never seems like he's gone. I don't really remember him not actually playing a game for him. He's always playing 80 minutes, or if not 75. Like, he's right up there. And just very consistent. He hasn't really got too many errors in his game, so it just doesn't have a massive, ceiling. He doesn't seem to really get involved attacking wise because Hynes is there doing all that sort of work. So, like, he's underneath the top two. It's just far enough away in price too that you're not even looking at that bracket. He's down with the Robsons and those sort of guys too. So, 5% ownership. Like, it could be higher too. The Sharks have a really good role, which you haven't got into yet too.
Stop. Yes, stop. Stop the press. First 5 games.
3 for 3.
Honestly, guys, kick me in the you know what, and just send me off to just pasture, basically. Go and abuse me in the DMs. I'll cop it for this one. Sharks first 5 fixtures. Warriors round 1, the Bulldogs round 2, round 3 is the Tigers, round 4 is the Raiders, round 5 is the bye. That's my only concern about having Brayley, is that bye, because if you're not having Harry Grant, if you do go for Blake Brayley, because that's your option from it. And then your second option is probably his brother, Brad Jaden, at this stage. If not, we go for maybe one of the para hookers. We'll see how that pans out. If that does happen, then that's ideal. Then I'm okay with this. But that buy is a little bit of an awkward thing, because otherwise we've always talked about Reece Robson as another option as well, and he doesn't have the buy to contend with. He has quite a decent run to start with as well, and that probably puts him just ahead for mine of Blake Brayley, because I don't have to worry about the buy.
Well, that's kind of my mentality with it too. Is if it's not a position where you have that much depth for, and you don't have that second guy to really cover you, then you don't really want your first guy being off recently, or right now anyway. But yeah, that's kind of the half the reason why I've gone to, like, personally, Robson over Brayley. I don't really see their points output actually being too different. I reckon they could probably do a very similar job to one another. But that buy kind of hurts a little bit, and I don't have anyone I'm super confident to play at hooker without, that sort of fella. So, I don't know, man. Like, if you're all about the fixtures and stuff, like, those are some really good opening games. Whether Brayley's going to get involved too much in the attacking side of things, which is what you'd want out of him, but because that's the thing too. Like, if they're flat track bullies and they're smoking these guys, you can't think him doing too many of, like, a defensive kind of stat work rate. But you got to think there's a few try assists in there, surely, out of the ruck, maybe. But for me personally,
hooker, is he?
No, not really, man. He doesn't really seem to have that.
Because I look at it, in the last 2 years, they've had similar sort of easier draws throughout the year, really. And he's never been that guy in Supercoach that you look at and he's got that 100 or something. And for the draw side of things and the teams they get to verse frequently, you'd expect that. So obviously he's just one of those, and that's the Sharks' game plan, is get the ball to Nicho to do his thing. And
that's it.
That's not too bad for his price tag, I guess, but that's also another reason why, I don't know.
Yeah, you kind of want that extra little bit too. And, like, Grant's obviously got it. Marshall King has it too. I think even Robson's got a bit of an attacking game about him. So he scored 1 try last year against the Roosters. And then you look at try
as well.
Do you remember it?
Oh, it was classic. It was just It turned the momentum of the game.
Oh, I bet it did. I'd love to go see the results of that game, see how much shit you're talking. But yeah, man, he's got try assists in him. 0.4 was his average for the game. For the season, sorry, try assist wise. So you're going to get one almost every other game, maybe here or there, one every three kind of thing. But it's just not really enough to get that attacking stat upside. But his base is really good. The early buy kind of hurts, but if you've got someone on the bench there that's going to be doing a good job for you to start with early on, yeah, it's not a bad pick at all, considering. But for 50k more, you're at Marshall King. Do you make that swap? He's got an early buy too, so you don't really have that same discussion to go against. It's the same situation. Yeah.
I think that's it. Front row forward now for the Sharkies. I look at the list and there's really nothing that really tickles my fancy too much. I look at the ownership percentage, there's not much there as well. Toby Rudolph, 480k, averaged 47 last year. Again, if you're looking at that sort of mark for a forward, I just think there's better options out there who can do a slightly better job than Toby Rudolph. He just hasn't really taken the game on as what I thought he could. I thought he could really establish himself as a top 10 prop in the game. I just feel like he's just teetering on the edge with that still and has been for some time now. I know there's been that preseason talk where he was in a drunken conversation with Fitzy and said he's going to get off the grog and take this year so seriously and he wants to be the main guy for the Sharks, which, look, if he does do that and he comes out all guns blazing, then I've got no doubt within the first few weeks he becomes an option that people look at, but just haven't seen it yet, so I just can't even talk about entertaining the fact of starting with him. And that's probably the same with Hamlin Ueli at 375 as well. Even though it's 100k cheaper, I just can't sort of touch either of them.
Yeah, I really like it when a player comes out and says he's getting off the beers for that year, because they always tend to do quite good. I remember when Munster said it a few years ago, and it was the best season he ever had in ever. So it just, I don't know, man. Like, Rudolph's not a bad price. I still reckon he does what his 48s, his 50s, that kind of thing, with the occasional 60 here and there, because he did do that last year. Obviously, he had a massive gap in the middle of the season. But, there was a couple of decent-sized games in there. But, again, it's just base, you know what I mean? It's just, he's just doing that. But there is a lot of options, we even just saw it. There's 3 of the Knights guys priced less than that could probably do the same thing. There's plenty of them. Flegler as well. So he's almost the same price as Flegler, basically. And I reckon Flegler does more than Rudolph does. Well, thereabouts the same. And Braden Hamlin-Ueli, it's one of those things now that he's got this massive contract tabled up with the Warriors. You got to think surely that the Sharks play him a bit more, try and entice that little bit extra, but who knows?
Or just say, if you're leaving, we're going to get everything we can out of you this last year. You're going to be earning your money. So
yeah, exactly. Just
maybe a sneaky option for 375k.
Yeah,
you don't know, but
I don't know.
I got breaking news.
What is it?
Off the back of what we just spoke about, off the grog, Peter V'landys has actually messaged me through. He's listening live somehow. I don't know how, because we're not even going live. He's told me, he's actually personally told Nathan Cleary he's not allowed to. He has to actually drink throughout the season. Otherwise, the comp will just be unfair. Like, it would just be Penrith, more so than what it is now. So just quickly get that out there for guys that Cleary will be on the grog frequently throughout this year to try and even out the competition a little bit.
You ever been to Panthers, mate? There's no way you're not getting on the grog in Penrith.
It's massive.
No chance. It is. And then you got the bloody golf out the back, aqua golf.
Oh, how good's
what
the
a
aqua
fun,
golf there?
What a fun night in Penrith,
I only have time to... And ideal night. You go there. I think they've still got Frengos there. You get a feast of Frengos. Then you go to Krispy Kreme and get a dessert, get a shake and a donut. And then you go over and spend a few hours burning all that off. You probably can't really move, but you still go and attempt it. You go do some aqua golf. And then you go and probably just put 50 through the pokies to see if you can get everything back you just spent for the night.
Burn it all.
But anyway, shout out Panthers if you want to sponsor the podcast. Happy to have a bit of a discussion. Even aqua golf, if you want to jump on board, we will promote you through the roof.
All about
I want to talk about number 6 here. Jesse, I can never say his name. Jesse Colquhoun, 238k, 4%. We started to see him a little bit last year, played 5 games. I probably got his name completely wrong. I have
I'm not even going to
absolutely
attempt
no
it.
idea how to do it.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try. It's probably way off.
Just keep an eye on him. 238K. He has the dual, which is always handy. If you can get some minutes, if you can get a bench roll, could just become a sneaky little play just to sort of sit there and try and generate something would be nice.
Maybe next year.
Anyway, or even the year before. Next year. We'll talk about that in 2025. Second rowers, Britton Nakora. You are a massive fan of this guy, so I'll let you take the floor.
Yeah, like last year, Nakora was obviously, I freaking know, I'm pretty sure he was in almost everyone's team. He was very heavily owned from like middle onwards because I didn't expect it to begin with Nakora. I think I started with Wilton early on and did that swap quite early. But, playing next to Nicho, you naturally have to assume you're going to get these really, really fancy little balls coming through and he's going to score a fair few tries. And he did pretty consistently too. And he was averaging, 80 plus for a good run. 710's a pretty decent price too for the potential you're going to get out of him. He's got a little thumbs up there. And again, we can talk about the really nice draw that they start off with. They got the Bulldogs and the Tigers around 2 and 3. Like the Warriors might be a tricky game, but I think for Nakora, it's sort of one of those games where he does want to step up a little bit harder too. So that's not a bad fixture for him. And then you just got to expect the Sharks to just destroy the next two with the Bulldogs and Tigers, and you'd expect Nakora to be involved in that somehow. I would think so anyway. So if you're in the mindset of going sweet premium second rower and you want to spend in that 700s, I think he's a great option for the 700s. Sorry, because between your Fafitas and Tinos, obviously we spoke about that too last week. Dave, uncertainly, and Tino's just a bit overpriced. For an attacking second row option, I feel like Nakora is the first one that you could probably get on at the moment. That's not Fafita, who's got a bit of a doubt about him. And then you can look like Yo's below him in price, but obviously Yo doesn't have that upside that Nakora does. And then Carrigan's even in there, Tohu. There's so many of them. Like they drop off quite quickly. So for that attacking second rower that's going to bank you a try regularly enough, to be considered, an actual stat he can bank on. I like it, and I don't really see value changing too much. But again, like he did have a really good year. He has had quiet years in the past, but I don't think he's had a quiet year since Nicho's been there. So, he's that premium guy. But again, like it's very hard to find 700 in the second row unless you sort of commit to having that first guy. Like I've been pretty vocal about having Cam Murray in, and really that's how much is that from Murray to him? 70k. It's like, can I find 70k to go up to Nakora? I don't know. It's a bit tricky.
Not at this stage.
Probably not. No, I can barely find 5k to do anything. It is. It's heaps.
In saying that, my current team, I've got 100k in the bank again, so I don't know how I keep doing this, but I seem to just keep having money and just can't spend it. So
look at you.
Thank you, Supercoach, for the extra money for League of Inches. I really appreciate it.
I'll just go from Robson.
You mentioned Wilton.
Hey, go on. Yeah, it's all right.
Robson to where? You're going to go Harry Grant up?
No, go down to Brandon Smith, and there's 100k. So
wait till the Roosters, because that is a talking point and a half. But let's just tease the viewers.
Yeah,
I think the Roosters are next week, so I can't wait to have a chat about that one. T. Wilton, you did mention 610k, 0% ownership at the moment. I just think that's because of the mid-tier options that are available. They're just sort of not really looking at Wilton at the moment, and that's probably fair enough for mine. Just sort of with Nakora taking off, and then as we just said that the cheaper players around, I just don't see him as that option. McInnes is just a toiler. You know what you get from McInnes, 599k. He's probably going to be more reliant on the fact if Finucane plays or doesn't play. He probably becomes more of an option if Finucane's out once again. Then he gets pretty much 80 minutes, and then he can do his thing and get you consistently 60 points or so, and you're happy with it. But at the start, I don't think he's an option just because, again, with those mid-tier options. Old Billy Burns, you've heard us in our NRL season preview. Massive fans of Billy Burns. Love him. I can't believe he's continuing to go. I think this is his third club, a fourth club or something in 2 years or something. So he's just insane.
Nuts, man.
Finucane, you get a bit of a discount on Finucane with, actually not really. It's 439k still, no interest.
It's pretty much
and
it.
Jack Williams, no interest at all. Let's go to the main man, Nicholas Hynes. There's Hynes. It feels weird saying his full name. I'm just saying Nicho
Nicholas
Hynes.
Hynes.
Get that in. Stop reading from the bloody app. 970K. I think he's the most expensive player in Supercoach for 2024.
Yep.
37% ownership. So there is people going all in. We're all in. He's my first choice when it comes to Supercoach this year. For those just opening the app and getting started and listening to this to get some pointers, just put him in your team and work around it. We've already spoken about the draw. He's the center point of everything that they do. He averages at over 100 every time they play at Shark Park. And I think they get a few early games at Shark Park as well. So that's a bonus. And I think with the addition of now Trindall instead of Matt Moylan is a benefit for Hynes because it takes off some of the actual preparation work and some of that sort of work away from him, and he can just be the runner. He can just do pretty much what he can with the ball instead of having to stop and organize everyone where they got to go. So honestly, even at 970K, I can see it's crazy to say I can see him going up, especially early.
Of course, man. Like you saw last year where he started round 4, coming off a calf injury with a round 5 bye. And people are like, "I'll wait till after the bye." Like why would you get him in just to have him off again for another week? He scored 180 points. Just punished everyone
He's
who
a
didn't
C
get
as
him.
well.
Just
C option.
insane. Oh, every week. Yeah, it's a safe captain every week. Yeah, I just can't see the argument against it, to be fair. Like, why not? Why wouldn't you?
37% is low. I'll go
Yeah,
as far as saying
honestly, it
that
should
needs
be
to be
higher.
60%,
60,
60
you
to
reckon?
70%, and you just make it work.
Yeah.
He
It could,
should
honestly,
literally be
he
your
could
first
start
choice.
off.
I
He could
can't
start
find.
off 1.1, and I'd probably justify it.
Yep, easy.
Yeah, yeah. We'll move to the 5'8", say. There's no point talking about Nicho. He's the best freaking player in the game. Leave him. I don't like spending too much time on things, mate. So
No, don't lie.
so about Nicho.
Braden Trindall, 439K, the dual 5'8" and halfback, 6% ownership because I think a few people because he'll probably do a bit more work in this team now that he's got the guaranteed starting spot. I just don't like having two playmakers in the same team. I think that's a bit of a dangerous territory that I don't like to go to.
Yeah.
So for mine, I won't be starting with him, but I guess for that, what was it, 63% that so far don't have Nicholas Hynes. That's crazy to put it in that way. That is holy shit.
Yeah, when you think about who don't
I
have
may be
him,
going,
what are you doing?
when you that
Yeah.
maybe Trindle's an okay option, but yeah, again, I don't
Nah.
think I spend too much time on Trindle, but
Yeah, I just don't think people have really paid too much attention to the fact they lose both of them together. That's going to hurt, and that's the same when you double up on anyone. If you went for Hynes and Nakora, it's such a nice play. At some point in the year, I reckon I'll have that. I'll have Nakora in the team too, and it's you kind of want him for that early start. So I've almost half been trying to justify fitting him in somehow. Who do I have to sacrifice to get him in just to capitalize on those first 3 games? But you're going for points and not so much in the cash side of things. But yeah, with Trindall, it's the same. Like he's got good value at 439 if he gets, the thing is, he's not going to take anything off Nicho. It's not going to happen.
that's
Like
the
you're not going to
thing.
go in there and you're not going to take points away from Nicho Hynes. You're going to just work next to him and kind of pot along. So he'll do more than Moylan did. He's a better player in general, I think, and sort of Moylan towards the back end of his career anyway. But the dual 5'8's nice. You can play him one or the other. You wouldn't play him next to each other, but yeah, it's a
He
tricky
did
one.
all
If
his
he
good
was,
work last year when Nicho was hurt.
yeah,
So that's what you're
yeah.
relying on.
But I think when they did his points comparison, when when you look what he was scoring when Nicho come back, like it was in the 40s and this kind of thing. Like he's just going to chip away. So yeah, I can see people getting him in to try and make coin out of him, thinking that he's going to be elevated by Nicho, but I think he's just probably going to do exactly where he's sort of priced at, maybe less. Because it's the thing, man. You're not going to take anything away from Nicho Hynes. So
no, I agree. Center wing, Ronaldo Muliatalo, 627K, 2% ownership. Pair him in with the other winger, Sione Katoa, 493K, 2% ownership as well. They've been pains in the asses last year because you just could never seem to get it right when you select. I know for you personally, it was 1 week you'd have one, the other week, the other one, then it would just be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, it's my worst take of
Headache
the
to
year.
avoid.
Just trying to, capitalize on Katoa's run of games and to just get slapped in the face with his worst score of the season. I think a couple of back-to-back consecutive shit scores, and I won't be going there. Even still, 493 for the run they have, for the potential they've got to go massive. Because you would think that at some point, I would definitely back Mulatalo over Katoa. But again, you're paying that extra for Mulatalo at the same time. So,
130.
yeah, it's a lot more for, hoping he just gets that extra bit of coin. But I don't like any of them, to be honest with you. I don't like any of them. I don't think you can rely on
I don't
any
like
of them.
any of these back options, like the top 4 or 5
No.
back options for the Sharkies in Supercoach. I actually don't like any of them.
Yeah, it's wild too, because then you get into the fullbacks, and I don't like their fullbacks either. I actually don't like any of their backline enough to justify starting with any of them. As far
But
as
then we
Nicho
get
Hynes,
interesting.
do we? Oh, well, with
Then we go to Kyle Iro.
yeah,
I can't roll me R's, guys. So sorry, I can't do that properly. But centering fullback Jewel, 219K, 41% ownership. There's a lot of hopeful Supercoach players out there, and I am one of them. The
yeah,
guy can play. He, especially attack wise, at defense, he still has a little bit of work to do. I think that might be why Fitzy hasn't gone all in on him yet. He would no doubt get a taste for mine this year. I don't know if it's going to be to start with or if it's going to be at some point during the year. I keep saying, and everyone who's listened to the podcast now over the last year or so know that I'm a big fan of Talakai going to the bench and becoming a bench forward and coming off and coming on and adding some impact. I think that's where Kyle will just come into his own and get to start, and that's when everyone will be all over him. The other young guy to talk about at fullback, K Dykes, 219K, 1% ownership so far, but he is coming off an injury and an ACL, which is the hard thing, but he did that very, very early last year. So he should be fully recovered now. He should be fighting fit, and from some of the pitches he is. Both players for mine are huge watches, and I'm now that, and the only hard thing with Cade is it's only fullback only, so he needs to get centre wing dual to be
yeah,
any sort of option
yeah.
there. That's why I think his ownership is only 1% because
I
it's
was
just,
going
you
to say
don't
the
want to
same
start with
thing.
that.
It's just if he had that dual center too, you could probably make the argument if it was one or the other between Hero or Dykes. It's like you just
I'd
pick
go
the one that's
Dykes.
actually going to play. Either one. Yeah, you'd probably much prefer a Dyke anyway.
Hang on.
Got him.
Wait.
Hold on.
Oh, wow. We must be ending the episode.
We're not far away from it, but yeah, like we've gone through all the centers and stuff and the wingers with them, and if Talakai moves out, like I think it's at that sort of ownership, 41%, you just got to get him, and he's cheap enough anyway that you can just fill that hole, and you just sort of leave him in there and just pray that he gets the center spot, because it's not exciting to look at, you know what I mean? And the more every year that goes on, you see Raymond and Talakai, just Raymond in general, like they're just chipping away. Like just give someone else a run, and it's not very exciting, but just put him on your bench and just leave it and just wait and see what happens with him. He's cheap enough that you don't have to care too much about any of it. And if,
Fingers crossed.
yeah, just fingers crossed, see what happens. But like, there's enough talk about it that you would expect something. Like, you can't just be all 41% ownership when everyone's talking about Talakai moving and, Aero coming up and doing this and that for nothing to eventuate from it. So, again, though, if nothing does happen, then everyone's stuck with him. So it's a big ownership, but very, very low risk. You're happy to you need someone to loop one day. You know what I mean? Could be the guy.
Yeah.
No,
I think that's pretty much.
Yeah. There's no point talking about Will Kennedy. He's 660K. He's way too expensive. It's just that's the thing, man. Like, you look at the whole team and you just look at that draw and you think you got to get onto a couple of them at least, but there really isn't that many to get on.
No.
Besides Hynes, it's Hynes' team, and everyone else is just there showing up. So